The wind tore through the street with the force of something alive, something punishing. My boots sank into drifts that seemed to grow beneath me, and my fingers had already lost all feeling despite gloves and layers. I pounded again on the front door of my childhood home. Once, twice, the lock clicked in mockery, a metallic laugh that echoed across the porch and into the emptiness of the blizzard. I pressed my face against the cold wood. They had left me out here. My family, people I had trusted, people who had raised me, had simply shut me away like a bad secret. I tried to remember why. My voice had been firm, my requests clear, yet they had laughed behind polite smiles and closed doors. I had begged, I had pleaded. And now I was alone, cold and trembling, a human figure nearly swallowed by the white fury of the storm. I stumbled onto the sidewalk, snow crunching and slipping beneath me. And for the first time since I had been old enough to leave home, I felt entirely powerless. The wind howled like it knew my fear, and it pressed against my ears and chest, shaping my panic into a raw, physical ache. My thoughts swirled: anger, betrayal, disbelief, but there was no time to process any of it. Only motion mattered, only survival mattered. That's when I saw her. A woman crouched beside a collapsed cardboard shelter, her hands hovering over a meager, flickering fire. She was shivering, wrapped in layers of mismatched clothing that did little to shield her from the cold. Her eyes, sharp and unflinching, met mine as I approached. For a moment, I felt exposed in a new way, not just to the storm, not just to my family's cruelty, but to her gaze. I need help," I whispered. My teeth chattered, and my words almost failed me entirely. She tilted her head, studying me carefully. I realized she wasn't just assessing my need for warmth, she was assessing my intent, my trustworthiness, and perhaps my desperation. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. I shivered again, a deeper chill running through me that had nothing to do with the wind. I sat at the edge of her shelter, my body pressed as close to her feeble warmth as I could manage. There was no small talk. Silence was enough. The blizzard made conversation impossible, or maybe the right words hadn't come yet. She lit a small lantern and motioned toward it, letting its faint light illuminate our haggard faces. "I saw what happened," she said, voice low, careful, like it might break the spell of the storm if spoken too loudly. "About your family. The shadow man, he's a trap. You need to see this." She handed me a small, weathered tape. My fingers shook violently, not only from cold, but from the weight of anticipation. I had grown up thinking I knew these people, the people who had given me life, who had provided safety, however unevenly. But the possibility that I had been blind to something so calculated, so deliberate, made my stomach twist in fear and anger. I hesitated, examining the tape, letting the cold of it bite through my gloves. The woman said nothing more. She didn't have to. I understood her perfectly. It was a choice, not a gift. I could accept what she offered or ignore it and remain the outsider my family seemed determined to create. The memory came unbidden, uninvited, like fragments of a past I had tried to sanitize. Birthday dinners where I was slightly ignored, compliments that never reached my ears, whispered jokes that excluded me, decisions made without me, conversations that seemed casual but were laden with subtle dismissal. Each recollection stung with a sharpness I hadn't noticed at the time. Now, armed with this tape, the patterns became terrifyingly clear. Inside a diner a few blocks away, safe from the wind but still shaking, I finally slid the tape out of its casing. The images were quiet but damning. Meetings I hadn't been invited to, decisions that directly affected me being made behind my back, subtle manipulations to isolate or discredit me. No one screamed, no one attacked. But the orchestration was there, cold and precise. My family was playing a long game, and until this moment, I had been unaware of how far it reached. Anger surged through me, but it was different from the raw panic of being locked out in a blizzard. It was deliberate, controlled. I did not yell. I did not call anyone names. I didn't throw anything. Instead, I simply watched, absorbed, and calculated. I realized that knowledge, simply knowing, had shifted something. The balance had changed subtly but irreversibly. I thought about my next move carefully. The woman had said nothing about what to do with the tape. She had simply given me the choice and vanished into the storm as silently as she had appeared. I could feel her eyes on me still, in memory if not in presence. I called someone I trusted, a neutral party outside the family's sphere of influence. Carefully I explained, showing only what was necessary. Their reaction was measured but validating. The external confirmation of the wrongdoing provided a pivot point, a lever I could now use if needed. The snow continued outside, relentless and indifferent. Inside the diner, I nursed a coffee, trying to thaw my frozen fingers and my racing thoughts. There was no jubilation, no sense of triumph. Only the quiet awareness that the world had shifted around me. My family's attempts to control me, to dismiss me, to erase me, those attempts had been circumvented by nothing more than careful observation, information, and the restraint to act with precision. When I finally left the diner, the storm had begun to ease, though the streets were still thick with drifts. I passed by the familiar house, lit warmly from within. Shadows moved behind the curtains. I felt a pang of longing for what had been normal, but I also felt no compulsion to knock, to explain, to beg for acknowledgement or forgiveness. The relationship remained fractured. irreparably altered by awareness and action. For the first time in hours, I walked slowly, deliberately letting the snow crunch beneath my boots in a rhythm that calmed the nerves rattled raw by betrayal. My family's world carried on, oblivious to the small but potent shift in control that now existed. I was not free of pain. I was not free of the cold memory of rejection. But I had reclaimed a form of dignity that no storm could take, no deceit could erode. I thought again of the woman. Her face, etched with survival caution and quiet strength, remained vivid in my memory. She had shown me a path that didn't involve confrontation, didn't involve revenge, didn't involve the theatrics of dramatic justice. She had shown me that the quietest choices, the careful, measured ones, were often the most powerful. The tape itself became more than a record. It became a talisman of understanding, a proof of observation, a silent but unmistakable tool. I didn't wave it at my family. I didn't confront them. I placed it in hands that could ensure accountability without spectacle. That alone was enough. The shift was internal but also external, concrete but unobtrusive. Days passed, and the snow melted slowly, leaving slush and ice behind like the residue of old pain. I walked past my home more than once. Inside, life went on, conversations, laughter, doors opening and closing. I felt the tension of being watched, judged, dismissed, but also the satisfaction of knowing I held information they could never suspect I possessed. That knowledge gave a quiet power. One that required no dramatics, no public display, no victory cries. Evenings were hardest. The absence of family warmth was felt in small, persistent ways. I missed the ordinary chaos of shared meals, the mundane debates over trivial things, the casual affection. But I no longer mistook absence for personal failing. I had clarity, I had perspective, and I had control in a way that didn't scream, didn't demand recognition, didn't seek revenge, but existed entirely, quietly, undeniably. Sometimes I thought of the storm, how it had mirrored my inner turmoil, and how the wind had seemed to carry both anger and betrayal as physical forces. Survival had been immediate, understanding came later. And the quiet victory, the one I carried in my mind rather than in public, was layered and complex, like snow melting slowly into water. Neither sudden nor spectacular, but inevitable. The woman never returned. Perhaps she had always been a fleeting guide, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, help can appear in unexpected forms. Perhaps she had simply been the vector through which I could perceive truth and regain agency. Either way, her impact lingered like the memory of warmth in freezing air. I did not celebrate. There were no high fives, no self-congratulation, no dramatic closure. I moved forward with a measured awareness, a careful planning of steps and words. Power had shifted without spectacle. Awareness had replaced ignorance. Control had replaced vulnerability. And the blizzard, which had once seemed like the embodiment of my family's cruelty, became a memory, a symbol of clarity achieved in adversity. I had walked through it, shivering and uncertain, only to emerge with a quiet strength that no door, no storm, no betrayal could remove. Quiet victory, no applause, no vindictive satisfaction. Just survival, reflection, and the slow reclamation of self, a dignity recovered not with force, but with patience, observation, and subtle but undeniable agency.